Welcome, everyone, to the Predictive Playbook. This is Manny's Irish Pub Sports Betting Show. I am your host, John Ryan, and I am very pleased to have three special guests in the room. And I believe if somebody makes the bail in time, I think we'll have a fifth guy coming on. And I'm not saying that he did anything wrong, but the way he's going to gloat with that baseball win last night, I might have to mute the mic. I just might have to mute the mic for the first time ever, because he, Rob, you weren't part of it, but I'm telling you, you would have been dying, laughing, because I managed to get him all wound up then with the owners. I managed to drive in his best friend and buddy Davey Roberts with Jensen, and how Davey Roberts would have the ability to remove Scherzer from the mound at any time. I was right about that. You could tell Scherzer was pissed. It was a good move because he didn't have it. It was worse than Garrett Cole when I watched those first two innings. And the Cardinals, like the manager said, they had their chances. They positively had their chances, but I'll tell you, there's one guy in this world that doesn't have a chance, and that's probably Urban Meyer right now. And I heard a great quote, because I was trying to explain this to Mr. Finn, that there's 32 jobs that he has in the entire world. He has one of them, right? He's supposed to be a leader of young men. So if he can't lead himself, how are these young men supposed to believe that he can lead them? Yeah, I'm not being holier than thou here or righteous or anything like that. We all make mistakes in life. Nobody's been perfect. Apparently, there's only been one human being on the planet that was perfect. He didn't coach the NFL though. But seriously, I mean, it's a different standard when you have a job like this, one of 32. You're held to a higher level, and I think he's gone. And then how is a USC, for example, gonna hire him with this video now?
Well, quite easily.
You think so?
Yeah.
I mean, would you take your son and I guess I can't say what I'm thinking now. Football is a rugged sport, and well, we won't go down that path. But Tony Finn just told me he'll be in at 4:45. But I do want to talk about the golf real quick, guys. And PGA Tour is a very long season, and they take a week off, and then they're right back at it, including the Ryder Cup. And now we're starting to get back into the swing of things. There's a big European event going on in which Jon Rahm has won back-to-back years. And if he wins it a third time, he and Seve Ballesteros, who is was from Spain, would be the only two to win that event three times in consecutive years, which would be really, really cool. But here in the States, we are at the Shriners Children's Open. They do wonderful things for, children's cancer, children's disease at this hospital. It's a tremendous fundraising event. And the PGA Tour does an awful lot of these during the course of the season. So they seem to have the right model in place. Before we went on the air, and I just hope the betting guys don't hear me say this, but I took a picture of one of my DraftKings entries, and it's actually sitting in first, much to my surprise. I have never had this happen. But we have Louis Oosthuizen. He's tied for 8 -6. Sung K Im -8. He's tied for second. Charlie Hoffman -8, tied for second. And he was like $6,800. That guy, how does Tony Mejia say I should say it? Pereira. I have him again this week. He is -5, tied for 12th. Seamus Power, tied for 12th, -5. And this is nuts. This guy hasn't even teed off, and I'm still in first. I have 208 points. So this event is being played in Vegas at a track that is going to be probably in that 20, 24 under, I would think, range. It should be a birdie fest. But by the end of the show, maybe I won't be in first anymore, so we'll keep that posted. But I did how many? I don't remember how many entries I actually did, but it was all based on that chart I showed on yesterday's show. That Jesse saw and Tony Finn and it lists 19 names, and I really do believe those. And within those 19 names, if you could play all those combinations, which no human being would be able to input it that fast, you'd find one that would, at least one that would really kick butt. Maybe not win, but it would win. The other ones are still playing. But anyway, that's not a bad start. So enough of that. Tomorrow we'll go over the ones that I picked to win top 10s and top 20s. But I did have the pleasure of interviewing my good new friend, Bobby Kravitsky of Sports Map Radio. He's my host on Friday nights. I'm on from basically 8:40 to 9 o'clock in really rapid fire, back and forth. It's just a lot of fun doing them that fast. And Rob, I think you said too, when you hear the first time, the producers in the, you're like going off on this angle and stuff, and all of a sudden you hear 50 seconds, 40 seconds. But it's not a big deal. It's just like, it kind of surprises you to hear somebody talking through your headphones. But he did a good show on college football and the pros. Simply, he likes the Jets +3, Packers -3, Titans -4.5. He's a professional. He does not sell picks. He just loves what we love. College, he likes Temple, Stanford, Michigan State over Rutgers, and Buffalo over Kent State. So the guy was nice enough to give me 7. And I think it took 11 minutes. So it's anybody who wants to listen to them, they're pretty simple to listen to. But of those games, the one that really stood out was the Temple and Cincinnati game. I think we all know analytically, teams with 5 wins are the ones that kind of are vulnerable to a failure, a loss. And it happens every year. It doesn't happen to every single one of the 5-win teams. But in week 6, the upsets happen. And it seems to be week 6, week 7, but mainly week 6 is where you get these big upsets. Now, I'm not saying Temple has any chance at all against Cincinnati, but if you can give me Temple +30, I think I'm on Temple. So if we want to start with this game, and just briefly, if you don't have anything on it, we'll just pass over and go around the horn. But let's start with Rob Vino in that game. It's number 5 Cincinnati at home, hosting a 3-2 Temple team, which is nowhere close to the talent of Cincinnati. But I do think 30 is too much. What do you think, Rob?
Well, I mean, when you get that high up, 30 points. The next key is 31, right? I mean, 34-3, something in that vicinity. I think the problem with Temple is that if they get behind, Cincinnati's not too likely to allow you any wiggle room to come back. They're so good defensively. It's a classic, what we would call letdown. I hate to use that word letdown, but lesser focus type game for Cincinnati, right? So the underdog immediately becomes attractive. Whether or not Temple's any good enough to do anything with it, I mean, they did get behind Memphis 17-0 and wound up not only coming back to cover, they won that game outright. But the quality of defense between Memphis, which we've seen, they've blown 2 games. They had Texas San Antonio all but wrapped up after 3 quarters and got beat 17-0 in the 4th quarter. So the quality of defenses certainly are different here. But yeah, I mean, just situationally, John, it would set up for Temple. As you described, fundamentally, there's no way you'd want to get near Temple. So it just depends on what side of the fence you're on. I won't be involved. We'll see. That's a really good gauge of Lou Fickell's motivational ability with his team to get them back up for Saturday and convince them somehow, some way, when the players know that Temple's not a worthy opponent, somehow he's got to convince them that they are, and that Desmond Ritter and company should go out and take it from the opening kick and make sure Temple doesn't think they have any kind of chance. Back door is always open, fourth quarter. Not that Temple's a great, offense that can march down the field 75 yards, but any let up in Cincinnati at all would give you 7 in the back door. So I don't know. I just can't play either side there. I've seen some arguments for Temple. I've seen some arguments for the other side. I'll be quiet on that one. Probably won't play.
All right. Let's Jesse, you have any thoughts on that game?
I do. This game wasn't really on my radar, but just as you mentioned, I had a quick look at their quarterback, DeJuan Mathis. He's coming off a big game over Memphis. And like I said, I wasn't really looking into this. So just at a quick glance, it looks like he came out and had a stinker against Rutgers. And I'm going to speculate that he might have got hurt. And that affected his performance because you didn't see him in the next 2 games, or you only saw him in 3 games. And then he's coming off back-to-back pretty solid games. So if that is indeed the case, that this guy got hurt against Rutgers in the first game, missed a couple games, and then Temple got really shellacked, then they're coming back with him healthy, and he has a big game against Memphis. This guy could be enough of a difference to maybe help them cover 30 points.
Yeah, and real quick, John, for those who don't know, Jesse's spot on. He did get hurt and didn't play. But DeJuan Mathis was the starting quarterback for Georgia in the season opener last year. He transferred out of Georgia. JT Daniels had been hurt. It was DeJuan Mathis or Stetson Bennett. It was DeJuan Mathis' first game, but that quarterback room was too crowded for him. So he goes all the way from a potential national championship team all the way to Temple so he can start. So he's a talented kid. Georgia doesn't recruit anybody less than a 4-star. So he's the most talented kid on Temple's offense and obviously vital to any offensive success they would have.
Dr. Chuck, anything to add?
Just situationally, this is one of those games that Rob didn't like using the term letdown. I'm perfectly okay with it. These are kids. It's weird sometimes to think that we're spending our hard-earned money on 19-year-olds that might have an exam and a couple of girlfriend issues and parties and things like that. But Cincinnati's had a pretty rough schedule, and this is not rough, and everyone knows it. And the spread's being talked about widely. So back in the day, when Cincinnati was just going to be a nice little "can we get to a New Year's Day bowl" type game, I'd take the 30 every day. But Luke Fickell has to get up off the mat, say, look at this week we've had. We have to beat this team, stop their throats to impress the committee type spot, which just keeps me off. Because, like Rob said, maybe they don't keep scoring. And I kind of like Temple's, they're pretty highly rated as far as stopping opponents from gaining big plays. They stop big plays, defensive point yards per play, they're pretty decent on. So I could see them holding them to field goals. I just have a hard time wondering if the Owls are going to score much. Rob brought up 34-3, and I mean the total on this is 54. So, maybe we could look to the total. But I wouldn't be involved with the spread just because I think, Luke Fickell's a good guy. He's not trying to be John Harbaugh out there and piss off Vic Fangio. But I can't see him getting up 28-0 and saying committee will like that.
That's a good point. The game kind of feels like that Penn State-Villanova game where Penn State was up 38-3. They took out all the starters and showed some sportsmanship. There is no reward for drilling somebody 70-0.
But that's in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chuck. I think you were going to make the same point I was. Go ahead.
But that's the Big Ten, John. You win you win the Big Ten, maybe you go 11-1 in the Big Ten, you're good.
That's true.
Pac-12's
But
out.
don't you think Cincinnati has gained the respect now more so than ever after that dominating win against the Fighting Irish?
Well, Alabama and Georgia, it's hard to. I mean, the 2 spots are taken.
Absolutely. And I think Georgia actually is the better team. I actually think they're the better team right now.
He's got to be preaching in that locker room. We know the score here. You're telling me that my Cincinnati Bearcats from this conference can take one of those 2 spots.
Yeah, I mean, all the bonus points that they've built up already with those 2 wins. If they go out and win this game 24-10, being from the American Athletic Conference, they could lose all of that in a hurry with the committee.
That's what I'm thinking.
So you have to go out and win this game 49-7. The good news for Luke Fickell is that team is veteran laden. It's not like they've got a bunch of freshmen, sophomores. That's all junior, senior, fifth-year seniors led by the 22-year-old quarterback. So maybe there's some maturity to that team to not fall into the trap that is Temple on Saturday as a 30-point favorite. We'll see. But, yeah, a team like Cincinnati, they don't get any grace from the committee if they don't blow everybody out. There's always going to be that skepticism. They don't belong. They're not a Power 5. They don't belong. And look at this. They only beat Temple 27-10. Oh, boy.
I'd argue similarly. You beat Temple 24-10, and let's say one of those touchdowns is late, and it was ever 17-10, then you just go the way of Oregon. It might already be over.
Yeah.
I mean, Oregon's not getting in with that one loss to Stanford. That's over. So, I mean.
Yeah, we saw Iowa jump over Penn State this past week in the standings to number 3. Penn State remained at number 4 despite a 24-0 win over Indiana. And I thought that was kind of odd. But with the standings, the rankings right now, it doesn't take in consideration the fact that after this Iowa game, should Penn State win, they do have to play Ohio State at Ohio State. And Ohio State right now is ranked somewhere in the teens, I guess. I forget where they are, but they're in no way in God's green earth. I'm 19, or I guess they were ranked 18th last week. And that doesn't factor that in. So your points are right. I mean, we have 2 that are in there for sure, and the only teams that can beat those 2 are themselves. And they're just head and shoulders right now above everybody else. But that is kind of a good segue into my next game that I wanted to talk with you guys. And it does involve Georgia. And it does involve Georgia going to Auburn, which is not exactly the easiest place to play. And Auburn, I believe, is like a 15.5-point underdog. Nix is playing, arguably the best of his career. I think there was a lot of pressure on him, given who his dad was, to be, this good his freshman year. But unfortunately, it takes time. But there is a stat I looked up. Georgia is coming off back-to-back shutouts, and the last time Georgia did that was 1980 when they won their first national championship game. They throttled Vanderbilt and someone else, 41-0 and 27-0, and then played South Carolina and did not cover the spread and got away with a 3-point win. So teams, it doesn't happen very often, last 15 seasons, teams that have pitched back-to-back shutouts are 6-12 in the next game against the number. And straight up, it's one game over 500. Is it crazy to think that Auburn could take them right down to the wire? I will start with Rob. By the way, I think yes. I think this is a game that Auburn is going to make single digits. I don't see them winning, but I do plan on sprinkling the money line with it. So now, Rob, your turn.
Yeah, I mean, and again, the point spread is always the great equalizer. If we're just talking about who's going to win the game and you want to lay, 9,500 minus 9,500 or minus 12,000, whatever the money line would be in an instance like this, go ahead and be my guest. But with the double-digit point spread being what it is, maybe they have an outside chance, John. There's not one single argument I can make fundamentally in favor of Auburn here. I mean, last week they're on their way to a loss to LSU, and they bailed themselves out with a 24-19 win. But again, LSU playing without the nation's best cornerback in many's eyes, Derek Stingley, who's now out for the season, lended itself to Bo Nix having some sort of success. LSU, not much of a pass rush team at this point in time. Here's the problem. Last week, Arkansas came into Georgia, and for all intent and purposes, Sam Pittman's defensive line, both of his lines, had been really stout against good competition along the way, Texas and Texas A&M. They made both of those teams look a little bit silly. Georgia had to go take their air raid offense last week and go run-oriented because JT Daniels couldn't play. He's got a shoulder situation very similar to what Dak Prescott had all summer long. Cowboys were lucky enough to be able to rest Prescott for an extended period of time. Georgia doesn't really fall into that same category, but they are lucky that they have Bennett as a backup. And he can run. Where Daniels is a statue and a pure passer built for the air raid, Bennett can scramble out of trouble. And they decided they were going to run the ball at Arkansas, and they dismantled that team at the line of scrimmage. Auburn's defensive line has been way better than advertised. I mean, for the last 3 years, we've talked about Auburn and Clemson having the two best defensive lines in college football. This year, it wasn't that way with Auburn, yet they've been really good against the run. I just don't think they hold up against this team after what I saw last week. Bo Nix has forever had trouble against good defenses. You could see what he did last week, turning into 3 picks once again, running for his life. Man, if they can't run with Bigsby, I question their ability to move the football at all against Georgia. So it's not a game. It's not a team I would be on for sure. And to your point before, guys, about two teams that are automatically in the playoff. If Georgia happens to lose a game along the way, regular season, and then goes to the SEC championship against Alabama and loses again, I'm not so sure a 2-loss Georgia gets into it. If Alabama loses along the way and goes to the SEC title and loses to Georgia and becomes a 2-loss Alabama, I'm not sure they get into it. So these teams have to go spotless because they're on a collision course where the SEC championship game is concerned. A lot of times those championship games are great helps to teams that are trying to climb into the Final Four or the CFB Playoff Four. In their instance, it's kind of a hindrance because they can't afford a loss along the way, either one of these two teams. So, hey, a win by Georgia doesn't mean it has to be by 17, but in my mind, it probably will be. So I would be Georgia or bust in that game.
All right, let's move on to Jesse Scholl and see what he thinks about this matchup. Welcome to the show, Tony. T. He took my advice, Rob and guys. I said his nickname. He told me his nickname, and I said, that's awesome. I mean, that's so much better than F and Tony. So now we have T. I love it.
Like Mr. T from the A-Team.
Like it, nobody calls me Mr., so just T. But no, he told me to do it if Finn was here, and I just did it anyway. So.
Well, I think Finn's on his way.
Oh, well, very good. I can only stay till 5:30 because I legitimately have to drive to a Colombian restaurant, which will be standing room only to watch Uruguay and Colombia play their World Cup qualifier at 7 p.m. So
man.
I will be getting out of here very quickly. And I am demoralized I was doing the college football show, got out of that, brought my laptop to do work for this show, and then watched Belgium lose their 2-0 lead. I was on the over, but I was on Belgium as well. And so that sucked. And they got a goal disallowed in the 90th minute and then gave up a goal in stoppage time. So I should put together a graphic of a fire hydrant and a dog. And it sounds like today you're the fire hydrant. Well, not pleasant. I did win my 4%.
Oh, we all go through it.
Go Molly.
Well, there was that baseball game last night.
Yeah, the baseball game last night was just. I mean, it was heroic how much I puked after that home run. And I'm a Dodgers fan.
Why'd you go the other way?
My math said to take St. Louis.
I think he had
Jesse
to with
Scholl's
Tony.
math or his analysis said to take the run line. I figured that I got plus
Hey.
205.
We've heard stories about how worked up you can get on air. I think Tony Finn drove you to that.
I think yesterday I actually, Jesse, is it right that I actually instigated Mr. Finn a little bit?
I don't know. He was doing pretty well on his own. He was adamant. Only a fool would bet against Scherzer yesterday. Only a fool.
Yeah, he was calling us names.
He was talking to a pair of fools, apparently.
I think he might have gotten to the hyperbolic point of saying that it was the biggest layup in baseball playoff history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with Tony, guys, it probably wasn't even a pro Max Scherzer play. He's got such a hard-on for the Cardinals and Adam Wainwright in particular.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been doing
That's
shows
true.
with him forever, and he will never, ever, ever admit an ounce of good in Adam Wainwright. Just bet against that guy. He sucks. He's too old. And it might have been the reason why he was on the Dodgers. It wouldn't surprise me.
You mean
I was pretty happy with Wayno last night.
You mean zero allegiance, Tony Finn? Yeah. Uh-huh.
I mean, he gets fixated on something and he stays there. St. Louis, I briefly mentioned back like the third week in August that St. Louis was only 4 games behind out in the wild card race. And immediately
I remember
Tony had enough rebuttal to that to take up the rest of the show till 6:30 at night. So
I think he ranted about John Lester there.
yes, John Lester,
Right.
J.A. Happ, and then somewhere in that mix, he mixes in Ewing Kauffman spends more money than George Steinbrenner. Story number 76. So,
Which someday I will produce the facts that I have found. But where I feel like I contributed to it, guys, was when he was saying about Scherzer is this like God himself on the mound. And let's see, Molina was batting 056 against him for his career, and he rattled down all those things. So then I have a list of about 10 Wainwright records for this season. And big ones too, like 17-4 when facing a team with batting 245 or worse, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Teams that strike out 7 or more times, 12-1. And I rattled these off, and what did he say? He said, "Well, that's just coincidence."
I thought the funniest part, though, was when as he's making his argument, he says, "Listen, boys, you never want to get in a fight with somebody who's got nothing to lose." And he had the Dodgers.
with everything to lose.
It all started with me saying the topic was that I just think they got to find a better way. Major League Baseball has to find a better way to make sure this doesn't happen. Like in the NBA, you seed by quiet.
Here?
This is even worse. The division series is even worse than the wild card game. I'm okay
Well,
with that.
I'm going to say this on that. Okay, because there's never going to be a perfect system, but you know what I just finished watching like a few weeks back is that Mets documentary, and I'm a Yankees fan growing up, and I hate the Mets, even though I'm from Queens. You have to pick sides there. And in 1985, the Mets were home because the Cardinals won that division. And there was only 2 spots, so you can't have it every way. It's not going to be served up on a platter for you. The Dodgers are the second place team. They're a wild card. They're in a 1-game situation. They got through it, and if they hadn't gotten through it, well, tough nuggies. So
How about
it is what it is. But they did get through it, and now we get to see them play the Giants in
War
the most
Eagle
beautiful series on earth.
Welcome to the show, Tony Finn, or not effing Tony. You lost your bet last night, by the way. You did. You admittedly you said on the show that Scherzer over half.
Over half, yeah. It
on
was
base.
he had a 3-0 count, and he decides to bunt.
But your bet lost.
Well, what was my other bet?
I forget. Jesse, you remember?
-1.
He said something about not fighting a guy with nothing to lose, something like that.
Yeah, -1. I don't know what you're talking about. Here's the deal. Everything I do loses, right?
Not the Astros. They're up 1-0, buddy.
I know. That's an easy winner too.
But that wasn't. I mean, it wasn't winning or losing yesterday. It was
That's not what you just said.
It was the dichotomy in your mind between Wainwright and Scherzer.
Well, yeah,
And you have to admit, Scherzer looked like crap last night.
I don't have to admit anything.
He took himself out of the game.
Hell yeah, you don't know me. I don't have to admit anything.
Don't you think Scherzer was actually like almost for the first time in his life glad to get out of there?
No, I didn't.
He
think
put
that.
up no resistance at all. Fifth inning.
Well, he had reached 100 pitches. I'm sure they had an agreement. I was talking when I was flapping my lips yesterday was because you come out in the third inning, guys. Scherzer's got 60 pitches. Maybe he's walked two or two on base like he did yesterday. Then I'm quite certain that he would have become the bulldog he was 4 or 5 years ago.
Well, I think you can actually blame that on Joe West. I don't know. Did you guys watch the game? I thought Joe West had one of the tightest strike zones I've ever seen him have.
It was accurate.
What?
No, he was absolutely accurate. It was an amazing thing to see.
No, not at all.
I really don't care when a strike zone's tight. If you're looking at K zone and they're not strikes, you can't call them strikes because you feel like it, and that's what
yesterday.
Well, that's my point. That's my point.
In truth, yesterday he called more. He called more strikes. He called more. He was actually. It's small. His zone was bigger yesterday than it typically is.
I thought he was
really
right on point.
Yes.
I thought that he wasn't given the outside pitch like he normally does, like the slider away to a right-handed batter.
He's just not consistent. That's his biggest problem.
Well, last night he was then. Last night he was consistent.
Yeah. Like I said,
well, I think to Tony's point, he's not consistent game to game, but once he gets in the game, he's consistent with what he's going to be. If I'm going to call outside, he's going to call outside all 9 innings. Yeah. But you just don't know if that's going to happen for every home plate assignment he gets. Last night, Max Scherzer deserved to be taken out. If you watch Will Smith's glove and the target that he was aiming at, Max Scherzer probably missed the target 75% of the time last night on his 94 pitches. He was pulling his body to the first base side so hard.
75% missed it, and look what his line was. And he was off 75% of the time.
That's why he's Max Scherzer, right? Because
if there was no comparison, Wainwright did not want to throw strikes. He did not. His curveball, he didn't have any command of his curveball. I was surprised he lasted as long as he did. There was bases loaded at one time with I can't remember who was up.
Trey Turner. It was
ball four rolls into a double play, or that game would have been over long before that. I think.
Believe me, Tony, I was cursing. I mean, that's a 2-1 Dodger lead, and the next batter coming up, and instead this jerk swings at a pitch 7 feet outside and grounds into a double play. And A.J. Pollock did it 3 innings later. He hit a ball so far outside that its first bounce, the first time it touched the ground, it was in foul territory on the first base side and angled back in. I mean, they let him off the hook in a couple instances for sure.
Yeah. That's what you're going to get with unfortunately for the Dodgers. They're the worst situational hitting team in baseball. If they are and I'm not just saying it because they are. I'm saying it because metrically they are.
And how crazy was it to see? And I mean, I'm a lifelong Dodger fan, but I couldn't even believe the statistic they showed. The Dodgers led Major League Baseball with the lowest chase rate in Major League Baseball. That's crazy with the guys that they have that swing at garbage.
That's right.
Bellinger on his own.
Yeah, Bellinger. I couldn't even
listen. There's a lot. Bellinger's not entitled to anything. He's not that. He hasn't been around that long, and he, here's the deal. Who was pitching? Was it Wainwright? Who was pitching? Was Reyes? Who walked Bellinger? Was it Reyes?
McFarland.
McFarland. Well, a left-hander. Not only a left-hander who has a lifetime. I think Bellinger was 0.56 lifetime against McFarland, and he's hitting 150 this year, and he walks him.
Yeah, and they weren't even close.
No.
And they call those non-competitive pitches. Those were non-competitive pitches.
And that's what there's no comparing the two teams' bullpens. None. That team if St. Louis would have won, it is what it is. That's what happens. That's how you get. Misfits winning World Series titles. Undeserving, because that's why they play the game. But it's stupid how much talent. Stupid how much talent that Dave Roberts has, and it's almost criminal that they have won World Series title. How many all the division titles they've won in a row, again, Jansen. Again, if I'm Jansen, oh my God! I mean, I could steal on Jansen. Holy shit!
You knew it was coming. You knew it. It's Edmund.
I could 61 on 5 Quaaludes and 2 bottles of tequila. I could steal on Jansen.
Well, while we're talking about your favorite subjects, what would you grade if you were a teacher of Davey Roberts' managerial performance last night? A, B, C, D, or F?
If you heard the announcers, they went through the game. He said every move was perfect.
I asked you.
Oh, I know. Well, I'm just saying what they said. So I went back and reran the tape, and I agreed with him. Every little dance step he did at the end, it was perfect. As far as the game goes, I'm not a Davey Roberts fan. I would never. I mean, I don't. Bellinger's he gets pinch hit for there against McFarland. He gets pinch hit for.
But they couldn't, right? Because they showed him a righty, and he sent Lux up to the plate, and then they pulled the righty and brought in the lefty, and
but here's the deal: if I'm Dave Roberts, here's the right thing to do. You go to Bellinger and say, "Listen, son, you're the MVP. Act like it. Take one for the team. Fall in front of the damn ball."
He walked. Was good enough. He stole second.
Yeah.
Listen, Dave Roberts had a good game last night. Normally, you could criticize Dave Roberts, and the only thing I was upset with him watching that game was when Joe Kelly was in the highest pressure situation of all.
Yeah, he was.
When he came in, and he got through those 2 guys without any problem, and then Roberts immediately lifts him for a pinch hitter and brought in Gratterall. I'm thinking, why you take Joe Kelly out so fast? But Gratterall wound up having a 5-pitch inning, so how can you argue with that?
Yeah,
you can't. I know Gratterall. Listen, the thing with Gratterall is this, and that is, I've never seen a guy that can throw 104 and get less swings and misses than Gratterall at 104 miles an hour. Never seen it. Never in my life. I have faced a 94 mile an hour fastball, and by God, if I'm facing a 104 mile an hour fastball, then you're gonna hear me scream like a girl. If the ball gets close to me. So 94, 100, it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous
it is.
It's ridiculous.
You're right, because we had a pitching machine, so you didn't have to worry about getting hit.
Right.
92
Yep.
is you can still kind of see the ball. You go to 94, and it starts to get out of hand. And then by the time, there's a huge difference between 92 and 94.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Supposedly your eyes can't.
Yeah, what's the difference between 94 and 104?
Well, that's what I'm getting at. And our machine went up to 102, and the ball sings. Yeah, it sings. Yeah.
I hope it sings like Adele, because I really don't.
Oh, you have to
like
it probably sounds similar to that. I'm not really sure, but it.
Dr. Chuck, are you like sitting on? Are you sitting on top of the? Are you on the top of the pickup truck? Like, are they your nickname Granny tonight? What's the deal here? Are you getting ready to take off somewhere? What are you doing? Where are you at?
Who are you talking to, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm talking to Dr. Chuck.
Oh,
I got kicked out. I have to move to the front porch now.
Well, you got kicked out?
He got flagged at the bar.
There's too many kids in that house.
Oh, I always thought there was a lot of kids in that house. I always thought there was a lot of bras and underwear hanging up behind you too when you were doing this.
That was, yeah, I know. I blurred that out. That was only for the NBA viewers.
Right. They appreciate it, Chuck.
Yeah.
I thought it was a green screen.
Go pound bricks.
So anyway, so we'll have the Dodgers and the Giants. And Tony,
No.
F and Tony, I love you like a brother, so I'm not
Okay.
going to drag you through the
Don't.
crying that I will endure with you, saying that there's no way in hell the Giants and the Dodgers should be playing each other.
No, I
We'll save
they
that for
should
tomorrow.
be. They should be playing each other, right? They are supposed to be.
In the NBA, they wouldn't be. I think in any other sport, they wouldn't be.
Why wouldn't they be?
Well, doesn't the NFL have a rule you can't be playing a divisional foe in the first round?
You can't after the first round.
After the first round, not the wild card round.
In the first round,
I don't
you
know.
can.
I won't. I better not open my mouth
NFL
on that because I'm not certain. But
NFL restructures later, but you can play anybody in the first round.
I say Dodgers in 5 anyway, so they're.
Well, after what I saw yesterday, again, I told you there's two big hurdles in that Dodgers team, and that's Jansen and Davey Roberts.
Jansen might not have to pitch.
Yeah, Jansen's pretty good. Most of his saves, most of his success when he's got like a 2 or 3 run lead, he can give a shit. He boxes on purpose. He does all kinds of stuff that's stupid. He's stupid stuff that that Jansen lets him do, and Jansen does, and he boxes on purpose. But you can't box on purpose when you got one out and runner on second. And he couldn't do it yesterday. But he's just happy to do that.
I agree with Tony about Dave Roberts completely, but I'll go out there. You already took Dodgers. I'll go out there and say Giants in 3.
If I was, I would think that the right thing to do probably would be that Kaplan would just go ahead and go up to the umpire and say, "Listen, we forfeit."
Seriously, I have one last question for baseball, and I believe in this. So that's the caveat right there.
There it is.
You look at the last playoff seasons, and the Giants come to mind the last time they won.
2016.
I want to see the first team that stops this stupid ass launch angle thing and starts hitting the ball to the opposite field. They're going with the pitch.
No,
they leave the bat in the strike zone longer.
It's gone.
Well, one of them is going to do it, and I have a funny feeling it's going to be the Giants or the White Sox.
No. Now here's the problem: is that
they're the ones that are going to win.
The launch angles are going to get more complex. That's what's going to happen. It's going to
complex.
Yes. Yeah.
How
more complex?
If you're swinging up like this, the ball and the bat can only collide at one spot.
What I'm saying is that that launch angle and velocity, basically velocity off the bat, quality contact, those things, those are new metrics to most people. And the guys have been following those metrics a long time. The guys that are sabermetrics guys, long time. Those things are just now. All they're going to do is build on that. Sooner or later, it's going to take. We'll have these little wrist things that we'll contemplate. We will calculate and compilate exactly what the batter is trying to do, what his odds are doing in it, and then we'll be able to make live bets on it. If it's actually going to be that launch angle, that's where we're going.
I guess. I mean, if you mean going against the shift and slapping it for a base hit.
I'm just going with the pitch.
I'm with you, John, that it's ridiculous they don't do it more often. But at the same time, launch angle lends itself to barrels. I mean, Stanton's lowest launch angle was on the home run.
Well, that's my point. Charlie Lau, you look at that study of baseball, which A-Rod used. A-Rod was Charlie Lau. He swung level.
Yeah.
And the difference between a home run and a single or a double, when you swing level, and even if you let go of the bat on the release, is backspin. Backspin is what makes a ball leave the park.
I disagree.
It ain't launch angle.
If you're a good hitter, you can do it whatever. I mean, those stories about Wade Boggs in batting practice, just hit a homer every time.
Yeah.
I did watch A-Rod hit 11 in a row, right center, left center, right center, left center, center, left center.
Ichiro would hit every during batting practice. That's all he did was hit the ball out of the park. He didn't care about hitting line drive. That's all he did. Hit home runs. Home runs after home.
But his swing was like a slappy. type of
home
swing.
run. It's all about bat speed.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
So when you swing out of your shoes at a golf ball,
Yeah.
it doesn't usually work, does it?
No,
but when you swing nice and smooth and under control,
I've never
it goes
hit
a mile.
the ball. Never hit the ball the farthest. When I hit the ball the farthest is when I practiced. When I played golf, we went to the driving range in flip flops. Why? Because you couldn't swing hard. It was that you had to keep your balance, and you had to, or you were all over the place. And I always was my sweet spot was always the best when I was hitting with flip flops. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so let's move on to something else to talk about. Is there a game that in college football you guys want to talk about? I would love to hear your takes on Penn State and Iowa. I am going to refrain from even giving my side of it, only because I would be so ridiculously arrogant in my analysis. It wouldn't be fun to listen to.
Well,
I don't think I could ever be arrogant though. Like I've tried, and like people know me at the Starbucks and the Dunkin' Donuts, and I walk in and say, I'll have this, and then it takes like 2 minutes, and I go, well, it's about time, and they laugh at me. And I'm just trying to have fun. I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm just trying to act like the customer did in front of me.
I don't consider that arrogant. If you say about time, I think impatient might be a better word, or an asshole maybe, but not arrogant.
When we go off the air, I wanted some links to from Google and the internet to how I can become more abrasive.
Oh well, yeah, I could probably use a few lessons on that.
You guys want to talk about Iowa and Penn State?
What do you want to know about Iowa? What do you want to know about Iowa? I'll tell you this right now, that when starting tomorrow, up to kickoff on that game, you're going to see a bunch of sharp money come down on Penn State.
I will throw this out. I don't think it's going to be even close.
Well, it's going to be close because it starts 0-0.
Well, that's true. It's like my DraftKings. I'm in first place, but we're not even in the first round.
There you go. You're a winner. Stop the race.
If there was ever a time that I want a team to score first so I can get nuts in the in-game, it would be this one.
Well, here's the problem with that.
I'm thinking I'm going to go 0 pre-flop, and then I'm going to hope that they score a touchdown in that first quarter, the first possession, and then I'm going to jump all over those Nittany lines at a line that is just going to be.
And why?
What's it going to be?
Why
plus 2.5, plus 3?
What's your primary variable? Well, what makes this not close? Because Iowa's been.
You cannot live on turnovers alone in this world.
Well, guess what? So far, Iowa has.
But no team has ever gone this far living off of,
they don't have to.
The turnovers.
If they beat Penn State, if Iowa beats Penn State tomorrow or Saturday,
they're going to have to win the turnover battle.
No, if they win tomorrow, if they exit that game,
well, it's
7.
2 days.
If they exit that game 6-0, then there's a really good probability. I won't do the configure. I won't figure that for you. But if you look at the rest of their schedule,
they're 12-0.
They're going to be 12-0.
Yeah, but then they lose to Ohio State in the championship game.
But much like Michigan, I mean, you can't live on rush yards alone. And when they got to Camp Randall, look what they did. They threw the ball more than they've thrown it all year, and were successful doing it.
Let's talk about that game.
Huh?
Let's talk about that game.
Which one?
Because in that game, their starting quarterback, the most I have it right here. McNamara hadn't thrown more than 16 pass attempts in any of Michigan's first 4 games until he went 17 for 28. Yeah, 197, 2 TDs.
I thought he threw 30. Did he only throw 28? Okay.
I have 28, but he completed more passes in that game than he attempted in the previous 4. So here's my segue into this game for you guys to tell me whether, which side is right. So now all of a sudden I have a takeaway that Michigan is no longer just a running power team It's no longer the Jim Harbaugh traditional, let's just ram it down their throats offensive scheme. Now Michigan show up any given week and has strengths on both a passing game and a running game that maybe no defense in the Big Ten can defend right now. I look at the line, 3.5, and I immediately turned to Nebraska because that line, I had that at 6.5, 7.5, easy going into Nebraska, and it's 3.
That's what it is.
Let's start with Tony Mahee on this one.
All right, what are we talking about? Iowa and Penn State?
I don't know. We're talking about.
I'm doing like 17 different things, but yes, I mean, like,
Michigan.
We talked about Iowa and Penn State the other day.
No, Michigan. Michigan is at Nebraska is what we're talking about, and why. Basically, my question is the market telling us to take Nebraska? Because I have the line at like 7.5, and it's 3.
Yes, I believe I did the show with you on Tuesday, and we talked about this game, and it was essentially the line is fishy, but can we trust Nebraska and Taylor Martinez, and why is this line the way it is and where it is? And it's because of a demolition of a Northwestern team that lost a ton of talent in the offseason. And the one thing that I will say about Michigan is that I'll disagree with you on their ability to beat teams through the air. I don't think they have that yet. I think they lost that when Ronnie Bell got injured. I think they could have gone deep, and it would have been a diverse offense because they were, they took 2 shots down the field against Western Michigan, and it turned that game around because they were off to a slow start. But without him, it's not as easy for them to have those big statement plays that immediately change a game. And if they have those, it's probably through the running game. It's probably Blake Corum going 60 yards, or McNamara giving way to the freshman and him coming in and making a big play. And it's still, we're going to beat you up front with our offensive line, big boy football. So I think Harbaugh has gotten back to that essentially, even more so without Bell. And I want to see if Scott Frost and his Huskers are up to that challenge. Because I agree with you, the line was fishy. I had it at 6. It's 3.5. It's telling you something. Well, at the same time, all these trap lines that become trap lines that we all recognize as trap lines because we do this all day long don't often work out. I mean, don't always work out. They often do work out, but it's not the end all be all. So what that does do, that I think you alluded to, John, is it makes me slow your roll down in terms of saying, all right, well, yeah, I really like Michigan in this game. Oh, wait, really? Why are you trapping me line? That type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, I had Wisconsin against Michigan last week, and I think one of the stats you were looking for with McNamara was he hadn't had double-digit completions in any of his previous starts. So his completions were in the single digits until he played a Wisconsin team that's really struggling, and that was a surprise for me. And I don't think I'm ready to bet against. I think I'm going to leave that one alone. When I see a line that I think looks like a trap, I'd rather take a pass. But I will say though, John, I think that your hatred of Iowa rivals Tony's hatred of the Cardinals, and I think your vision might be a little clouded there. I mean, to say it's going to be an easy game for Penn State on the road in Iowa. Iowa's a pretty tough place to play. I'll make you a deal. How about this? If Penn State wins, I'll show up next week on the show with a Penn State jersey. If Iowa wins, will you show up on the show with an Iowa jersey?
I can do that.
Hat or something like that.
It's a lot easier. Given the popularity of Penn State in this country, it's easier for you to get a jersey than it is for me to get an Iowa jersey. I would do my best, though. I would do my best.
While you're sitting right there, in 1 minute, I can get you an Iowa jersey.
Yeah, I mean, we could have it.
All right. Well, I was just saying.
This is 2021.
You got to bill for it, though, Tony, because I mean, he's got to pay for it if he's going to wear it. Well,
if he's not going to pay for it, then I'll send him a second one. And as soon as he opens the damn box up, he'll be sorry he didn't pay for the son of a bitch.
The one thing that I was getting a really rough.
See, Rob, I'm getting insulted again.
I was getting a rough go on because we easily dismissed them against Indiana. Oh well, the offense was bad and Penix isn't 100% from his ACL, and yeah, they made him look bad. And Iowa State, for whatever reason, didn't show up, and Breece Hall doesn't look like himself, and they stuffed him in there with 6 points on the scoop and score, and they didn't play well. Well, now there's a common denominator to all these games. Tagovailoa throwing the football to Iowa as if they were in Maryland jerseys, and it's Iowa's scheme is confusing every quarterback they've absolutely seen, and their offense isn't being tasked with doing much. And Petrus is a game manager, but he's gotten away with it because the defense has been so just overpowering, and he actually comes off the last game against Maryland.
Touche. Tony's absolutely correct. Here's the deal. We don't know anything about. We truly don't. Iowa has not had to do anything. They had 6 drives. Every single first quarter drive last week was no longer than 35 yards.
Yep.
When you get that kind of a lead, you don't have to show. I wouldn't. If I'm a coach, I'm not showing you anything. Even if I don't have to, I'm not showing you shit.
You're getting away with it. You're getting away with it halfway through the season. You're undefeated, and you basically showcased your tight ends.
Yeah,
that's it.
You don't have to show. They haven't had to prove to anyone. And as soon as you, as Tony just said, as soon as you travel and go to Iowa City, to that, I'm not going to say that. That beautiful Iowa City.
Yeah.
Then, and you think there's going to be a cakewalk, and you're the coach or a player, you're probably going to be fired or on the bench. That's because that's not true. Iowa, the numbers. First off, Iowa under the friends is stupid. If he's a favorite on the road, his numbers during his career at Iowa against the number are stupid good. And he doesn't lose at home very much. I don't care. He doesn't care who you are. If you're God, he's got a game plan for you. This is a guy that is under fire. This is the Bill Snyder. That tree is equal to it's older than the Stoops tree coming out of Oklahoma, which is a hell of a tree.
And guys, you know why we appreciate the dialogue of Tony Finn? It's pretty simple. He's number 1 all-time football profit leader at Waiter Talk. He's 51, 29, 64% NFL, 5% big tickets, 9-4, 69% college Saturday last 2 weeks. 8-3, 73% college football, 5% big tickets, etc., etc. And the one I love most of all, 90-68, Major League Baseball run, and he actually puts in the correct thing: 66% return on investment, not win percentage, return on investment. So a little promo there.
Thank you. And I suck, and it's okay. You're only as good as your last pick. Well, I won yesterday, so I'm good. We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, but you lost the bet that counts on the show.
Yeah,
he's
I
just
did.
Like Iowa, he gets lucky.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I no. Well, my mantra is this: don't ever. I really don't. I appreciate people who wish me luck and all those kind of things. However, I ask that you don't do that because there's only one kind of luck I can have. And that's bad luck because I'm always effing right.
Rob Vino, do you have any comments on the Michigan-Nebraska game?
I do. Yeah, I have comments.
He's going to say the same thing I'm going to say. I already know. Go ahead and say it.
Just in case this runs long, I'll say goodbye to Tony Mejia, who got a few words in but has to scoot in 3 minutes.
3 minutes for me.
So good luck tonight, Tone.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Tony, you have a free pick for the show? You only had to just one free pick for the show, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Columbia.
And no breakdown. Just
no, not Columbia, because I didn't release a client play. We would be lucky to get a point in Uruguay, but that point would be valuable. The game that I will give you will be, I guess it's a client play, so as well. Oh, I'll because I gave you the ratchet play the other day, right? The Falcons and the Jets over, which took a little bit of a hit with Calvin Ridley not traveling, but I still like it. We'll go with the under in West Virginia and Baylor. It's Dave Aranda. He's been able to really get that Bears defense to the point where they have teeth every week. West Virginia wants to keep Jared Tate from destroying the offense with his poor decision making. Bohannon from Baylor, not the best of not the most productive of quarterback, more of a game manager. Tristan Ebner, the running back for the Bears, comes off a game where he had no yards on 7 carries, and I believe he didn't have a catch, and all of his yardage was on returns, and he's normally lights out as far as all-purpose yardage in the Big 12. So a lot not to like from both offenses, and it strikes me as a 16-13 game. So the totals, I believe, at 44.5. Give me the under, Baylor, West Virginia. And I wish you guys all luck today, tomorrow, this weekend. I may see you tomorrow, but God bless. Are you
in Vegas?
Sounds good.
And go to
Have a good night.
I'm going to be watching them against Jamaica tonight. That's a big qualifier as well.
I won't be. So you watch it for me.
I'll be watching baseball and football. It's a ridiculous day today, isn't it?
Just be careful of women who start dancing in front of you. That's all I ask. And have a good time.
Be wary of Greek women bearing gifts. Don't trust them.
There will be dancing. I'll tell you. Maybe I'll put pictures on Twitter. Keep an eye on my Twitter feed tonight. We'll see. We'll see if I let the Aguardiente flow. All right, boys. Have a good one.
Take care,
have a good one. See you
later, Tony.
And then there was 4.
And I have, truthfully, I'm supposed to be gone now, but they haven't been. As soon as they ding me, I leave. I will disappear like.
So now I'm going to give Rob Vino the short end of the stick. He can't even talk about Michigan, Nebraska, because you have to leave. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, he can talk about anything he wants to. I don't.
Why don't we finish the? If you get dinged, then you can just do your free pick in a minute. We'll go back to Rob Vino for his opinion.
I did give you a free pick for tonight already.
Don't bet against the Dodgers?
No. Don't you remember I said over 70? Well, I said over 71. Now it's 70. It's now 73.
Oh, Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
All right.
I said that thing, listen, the overnights on that one Sunday were 77, 78 at a few shops, and they made quick adjustments down to Penny opened like at 70, and I think there was a few, reliable and reputable, offshore stores that the others made adjustments to them, obviously. But I don't know what you know about Arkansas State, but they really don't play football. So
well, we'll do that next. If you're still here, we'll let Rob do his Michigan, Nebraska.
Yeah, Rob's
or any other game he wants to talk about.
There's a reason why the number is what
State.
it is. So who?
Because I have a question about that game, but I'll wait till Rob's done. So Rob, the floor is yours finally.
All right. So what are we talking about? Iowa, Penn State, or Arkansas State?
We're talking about Nebraska
Michigan?
hosting Michigan.
Michigan.
Your thoughts on that one? But you can talk about any one of those 3.
I'm in line with what everybody so far has said about power ratings. Mine showed Michigan -5.5, so it's still more than the asking price right now. Had Nebraska last week -11, but it's they blew out Northwestern. It's not really impressive. I mean, it's what they're supposed to do. Duke ran for 326 yards against Northwestern. So what Nebraska did in that 51-7 or whatever the final was, again, it's not overly impressive. They stomped on a team that can't defend themselves, and it's really not Pat Fitzgerald like to have a defense that can't stop the run, that just gets blown over. But when you only return 3 on each side of the football and you're Northwestern, that's a rebuilding year. The problem I would have with Nebraska, and situationally, it probably sets up real nice for them. They've played better the last 3 weeks. Let's just start with them. Played better against Oklahoma, still found a way to lose. Played good against Michigan State, still found a way to lose. Beat Northwestern. Now we're going to ask them to beat Michigan. Coming in off the Wisconsin game, the situationals don't really favor Michigan here. Is that Tony getting beeped?
No, that's somebody else beeping. I think that's
okay.
Somebody from Slack. Go ahead.
So, Nebraska's just what you worry about with them all the time. Are the things you never handicap. Nobody handicaps penalties. Nebraska's one of the stupidest teams out there. They'll get the costliest penalties in the world, and you'll come in on Monday and analyze the game. And well, if Nebraska didn't do this, but they do that, and they do it often. Adrian Martinez, for every good play he makes, most weeks he'll make a bad one. So to ask him to be good like he was last week for the entire game, it's tough to do. When I played Nebraska last week, and I used that game on the Friday Wager Talk Today show, and after I bet that game for myself, I just thought in my head, you know what? You're the true definition of a gambler if you're putting money on Nebraska, because that's what it is when you bet Nebraska. It's a true gamble. Scott Frost, since he's been there, hasn't been able to correct any of these things. They were playing better last year at a certain stage, and I tried to bet them, and they just revert back to form. So again, you have to deal with the mistakes that they make, the 20-yard sacks that Adrian Martinez will take that kill a drive, the dopey penalties, the whole shooting match. What they're good at, I mean, personnel-wise, they're pretty good. They're good on the line of scrimmage. Their offensive line is good. Their defensive front seven has stood toe-to-toe with every single team they've met so far. They're not real explosive. You know, I was on a show yesterday with Steve Merrill, and he was rattling off overall team statistics for Nebraska this season. And if you look at their overalls, you might come to that conclusion. Yeah, they're explosive. But guys, they didn't score over 28 points in a game all season long until last week. And the teams they beat, you know, Buffalo did nothing but run the football. Can't pass the football at all. They beat Fordham. They lost to Illinois. We already talked about the other few teams they lost to. So they're not in this supreme class where you can be confident in them, but I would agree that the eye test tells you that they're playing better. But for me, that team has to overcome a lot of the bad stuff, the unhandicappable, if that's even a word, unhandicappable stuff that they do.
Intangibles.
In the form of penalties, in the form of sacks taken, in the form of drive-killing stupidity, missed field goals. The whole shooting match. Adrian Martinez is not that accurate of a quarterback, guys. He can take off and go 65 yards on a run, but he can overshoot a receiver and put it right in the defensive guy's hands like he ran the better pattern. For Nebraska, it's helped. They were missing two of their top three wide receivers the first 2 weeks of the season. They got them both back now. Samori Toure, the wide receiver from Montana, the transfer, has been outstanding as the lead. But they've got guys now that can get deep as well behind him. Go ahead, Tom.
I want to interject with you because everything you're saying is accurate. Here's the deal. When people say something wrong with the line, or they'll say, my power ratings has this number, you see, I don't do power ratings in anything but college football. And I don't do it. That's the only thing I do power ratings now, and that's in college. Why? Because I don't need to do them for the NFL and such. It's 32 teams. I do them. I can just do them right in my head, you know. And let me ask you this: Michigan State, they came into the season unranked, if you remember, right? They had to kind of get over that unranked thing, and they are what are they 4 or 5-0, whatever the case may be. But who's a better team, Nebraska or Michigan State, in your opinion?
On paper, like just potential NFL players. The separation isn't that big, Tony.
No,
it's not that
I'll
big.
I'll say this. The line is what it is because the books are going to put a number out there. They don't care about your power ratings. They don't care about theirs.
Of course they don't.
All they care about is getting. All they want is even money on both sides, and that number that goes out. So that's all. Okay, so here's my point.
Let me interrupt. If that is where they thought it was going to be even money, why are we thinking that this is a ridiculous line and it should have been?
I don't think it's a ridiculous line.
Ridiculous. I mean, the difference between 3.5 and 5.5 isn't ridiculous. It's not even.
For example, I have it at 7.
Oh, guess what?
I mean,
6 is a different number. Yeah.
I mean, everybody's power ratings and their adjustment process is going to be a little bit different. I mean, the power ratings are good because they're a ground point for starting a handicap. For me, they've never been a reason to bet a team. I don't look at my number and say, oh, my God, that's so far off. I'm betting that team. You see it, and then you investigate it even deeper.
Right.
I think the power ratings are raw talent numbers adjusted every single week. And for me, they stopped me from being 100% believing in what my eyes saw. People, the
Your lying
people
eyes.
bet is what people saw last is what they bet.
Yeah.
And power ratings help you avoid betting what you saw last.
Yep.
Because we all know results are different every single week. Oh my God, how did that team get beat by that team? Well, just because you saw them win Sunday, it doesn't mean you're going to win this Sunday. So I want to get to real quick, Tone. Let me just get to this real quick.
No, get to it.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The point was on Cade McNamara. Yeah. And, he threw 28 times last week. Listen, I probably talked about this to the point of beating it to death. But Jim Harbaugh, you get these traditional head coaches that go out and hire spread-type coordinators that can put some explosion in your offense. In the case of Michigan, a couple years back, they hired Josh Gaddis. They hired him from Maryland, brought him there to do his thing, to open up that offense. And Jim Harbaugh hit the brakes on that guy. Hit the brakes. What they showed last week is that, he's freed this guy up a little bit where their preparation is concerned. Wisconsin was giving up 1 yard per carry on the ground if you don't weed out the sack yardage. So you're not going to go in there with the mentality that, we're just going to run it down their throats. You're not going to against a team like that. But what they had in their back pocket through spring practice, through summer practice, was the ability to throw the ball a little bit with this quarterback. And they had to break it out last week, and they did. Just to keep Wisconsin honest, to keep them off their running backs. If they have to do that again, they've got it. Tony was absolutely right. If they still had Tony Mejia, if they still had Ronnie Bell, they'd be able to attack you 30, 40 yards downfield. But where they attack right now is more mid-range, and it's enough to allow their running game to have some holes, to keep the linebackers off the line of scrimmage, all that type of stuff that you have to do. So Harbaugh allowed them to call a game that way. Nebraska's defensive line is pretty darn good. Remember what Nebraska did to Oklahoma. It'll be different here. Nebraska went in with the strategy, we're going to umbrella Oklahoma. They're going to throw everything underneath. We're never going to let them have a deep pass in this game. And they didn't. And Oklahoma they're so anxious to get chunk plays that it bothered them for 3 quarters. Finally, maybe 2.5 quarters. Finally, they decided, okay, we're just going to take what they give us. Michigan will take what you give them. Question is, can Nebraska take what's going to be given to them by Michigan? I don't know that it's going to be much. If this game were 5.5, Nebraska at home, I'd probably be there with Nebraska. But at a field goal, I could certainly see Michigan winning 24-21, 2017, any of these types of scores. They're just as physical. They're probably a little bit better. So I don't know. The line's just in a bad place for me. Maybe the odds makers. I've never really believed in the odds makers are telling you something.
I agree.
By the number that they throw out there, it's just more or less they kind of anticipate where money's going to come from, and they set numbers. They pad or deflate numbers accordingly so that they don't get smashed.
We'll see how it goes. There's no doubt about it. Here's the deal. What Rob says is true. Here's the deal, and that is, look at what Nebraska has done this year. Somebody said something, I don't know who was just talking about their schedule, but the truth is, what they did, listen, Scott Frost put together a really good game plan for Oklahoma. Not that I have a lot of faith. Oklahoma's offense is really hesitant this year, or they're doing a few things differently, and they're a different animal than they were last year. I think they got their hands full this weekend with Texas. As bad as Texas looked against Arkansas, that was one game. Okay, first off, Nebraska has the ability to stop the run. The Black Shirts, if there's one thing the Black Shirts can do, they do have the ability to stop the run. And part of that number is, if you look at the box score, I don't know if you guys looked at the Michigan State Nebraska box score, where Michigan State won 23-20, right? Well, Nebraska had doubled them up in almost in everything, more than doubled up in first downs. Okay, Michigan State was 1 for 11 on third downs, and they had 254 total yards, 71 rushing yards. Nebraska 442 yards, something like 200 yards rushing, and all they're talking about now is Michigan State being one of the top 3 teams in the Big Ten. So then you look at after Michigan came in being a little undervalued, I think, because no one knew exactly what Harbaugh was going to do with this team. He's always kind of a mystery in that area. And they're 2-point favorites at home against Washington, right? After that, the next Power 5 game they play is Rutgers, and they jump to being a 20-point favorite. And what happens? They gain 74 yards in the second half of that Rutgers game. And then they back it back down. And this is this line that's there. As Rob said, I would be wary. I would not surprise me at all if this is a close game. Not one bit. Why? Because I don't trust Scott Frost. I certainly don't trust Martinez. But you better believe that what Scott Frost has done, what he did against Michigan State, the way he attacked every single Achilles in Northwestern. Not that they don't have a bunch, but they did. Scott Frost, he's never grown into that role, and he's never had. I think they've done a very poor job. It's tough to recruit Nebraska athletes to execute Scott Frost's system. You want warm weather kids that can fly up and down the field, and that's just not what Nebraska corn-fed kids are. And that's a tough listen. It's just not. And I'm not saying that there isn't anybody fast in Nebraska. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying that those kids, those Ty Hills, those kind of players, they don't want anything to do with Nebraska in November, December. Nothing. I don't want anything to do with Nebraska in November. And so I certainly don't want to be up there with Jesus in Canada in December. Holy shit, just wake me up when it's April, May.
2 games you just pulled out, Tone, would make
quite
you
nice in Vancouver, actually. Doesn't even snow or anything.
2 games you just pulled out, Tone, give you all the reason you want if you were trying to put the brakes on betting Nebraska.
Yep.
Oklahoma, as soon as anybody hears Oklahoma, and if you ask them what's their weakness is defensively. Let's face it, Kansas State got over 400 total yards, and they threw for 320 on Oklahoma last week.
Without Skyler.
Skyler played. Tulane took them to the final gun, 40-35, and had a chance at a first down to go in for the game winner.
That's right.
And what does Nebraska do offensively against them? None of that. 16 points, barely over 200 yards. They did ugats, nothing. And then if you take the other game, what the heck was the other Nebraska game you mentioned? It was against Michigan State where they doubled them up, right? They doubled them up in total yardage. They doubled them up everywhere. And they lost. They couldn't win that game because
they find ways to lose.
They're mistake-prone.
That's right.
And it's hard to bet on mistake-prone teams when the number is that small.
Rob,
you were getting enough against Oklahoma where you can overcome.
I think the possession time was 40-20 in that Nebraska for almost 40 minutes to 20 minutes of Michigan State too, and they lose.
I mean, if you were looking for reasons why you don't want to bet Nebraska, those 2 games are great reasons. They could do nothing against a defense that hasn't stopped anybody, and Texas will probably shred on Saturday, and they couldn't win a game where they doubled up the opponent in first downs, total yardage, everything, time of possession, the whole works. They couldn't win that game. So if they beat Northwestern, big deal. You beat Buffalo, big deal. You beat Fordham, big deal. You're supposed to beat those teams. You're Nebraska, for Christ's sake.
Right.
It doesn't mean go bet Michigan. I'm just saying if you want counter arguments to why you wouldn't bet Nebraska, those are them right there. You wouldn't bet Nebraska for those reasons.
And here's the deal. Guess what? We all know. I'm telling you right now, would it surprise me if Nebraska won?
No.
Not a bit. Not one bit.
No. Because if they give you a consistent 60 minutes, they could win this game. No problem.
Yeah, they can win this game by margin.
The problem is
they're talented.
You're begging them to give you a consistent 60 minutes. They're just one of those teams that'll make you rip the hair out of your head.
Agreed.
And at the end, you'll say, I had the better team and I'm shredding my ticket.
Yep.
That's who Nebraska is.
Yep.
If they can get consistent, they'd go to a big bowl this year. They could rattle off 7 wins in a row. But
I don't know. I don't bowl for sure.
It's hard to trust them. Where I was concerned real quick, guys, I know, and listen, again, I'll say it, Mike Yursich, the offensive coordinator for Penn State, a guy I really think is really good. He's going against Phil Parker on the defensive side, another guy I think is really good. But to simplify it to the point where Iowa needs turnovers, and they're not always going to get turnovers. I think it's just to that argument, it's just kind of foolish. It's not recognizing the scheme of Iowa. That listen, they went to Ames, Iowa, and they confused a better quarterback than what they're. Brock Purdy is better than Sean Clifford. Ask any NFL talent scout who's better. They're going to draft Brock Purdy before they draft Sean Clifford. And they've got a better running back. Breece Hall is a Heisman candidate, and Noah Cain is not. So they've got better personnel, and that team turned the ball over 4 times in that game. So they've turned over better players, better quarterbacks, smarter offenses.
Very elite.
Penn State's
Defensively, this Iowa team is elite, and they're elite. They're elite to the level where they haven't had to do anything offensively so far. Yeah. Amazingly.
I mean, to concretely say 100% convinced that Penn State's going to go into Kinnick and not commit a turnover. It could happen. Of course it could happen, but I just don't think it's reasonable thinking to think that you're going to go in there and Sean Clifford is going to recognize every single defense that he sees Phil Parker throw at him. Do I have confidence that Mike Yurcich can combat that offensively? To a degree, I do. But Iowa's got cornerbacks, guys, Riley Moss and Matt Hankins, that are going to be NFL. Iowa has more cornerbacks in the NFL than Penn State does. Iowa's produced going all the way back to Adrian. If I go back to Adrian Claiborne, defensive ends, they've had as many defensive ends. They're not we need turnovers to beat you type of team.
This is so maybe you're not going to get them. So well coached, don't they, Rob? They are so well coached. It's stupid, I think.
And there's a lot of stability in that coaching staff. Ferentz has been there forever. Parker's been there forever. Yep. But it's how they win, guys. When you do it so many times, no longer is it a fluke. And with Iowa, it's no fluke. That's how they win games. And I get it. Their starting scoring drive this year, for what it's worth, is from the opponent's 39.8 yard line, inside of 40 yards. They turn you over. They give their offense short fields because their offense isn't quite as capable. To help themselves out the last 2 weeks, starting in the Colorado State game, they put freshman wide receivers in that run 4 threes. And last week you saw them beat Maryland over the top quite a bit. Will they beat Penn State over the top the same way? Probably not. Not as often, at least. Maybe once or twice, but not 5 or 6 times the way. And Maryland just isn't that well of a coach team at this point in time. They don't have the capabilities that Penn State has.
No, they. Is it not surprise you?
They're completely undisciplined.
Well, first off, they're a fraud. The fact that they only lost that first game last week with their loss is really surprising to me.
I agree.
Yeah, they may get it handed to them again this week by Ohio State.
They might.
I mean,
that number. Listen, to talk about that number. See, that's a number that jumped at me. I think they should be given 30. Ohio State, the way Maryland played last week, or the way they really played all year, and they've been fortunate. So, but 20.5. Listen, it's right now. I'm pushing myself away from the counter, not to play that.
Yeah, they're hard. They're hard games. I mean, the results are going to be what the results are. I don't think anybody here is saying Michigan, Nebraska, Iowa, or Penn State can't win the game.
Nope.
Would be surprised if any of the 4 win their games. But I just feel like Iowa gets sold so short because all they do is get turnover. But you know what? They do it. They do it. And
I have read guys, Rob, all week long. They're saying, listen, this Iowa team is a fraud. I don't trust them. They're about ready to implode, or basically, regression, negative regression is going to hit these guys. I've read it 100 times, and I never listen. That's as soon as I read that, as soon as I say that or believe that, that's when I wrote it in an article a day. That's when I stop. I take a step back, and I say, listen, I need to get it's. I advise somebody that everybody's asking, well, how do you get intel? How do you get information? Well, you never give up. You never stop getting intel. As soon as you bite into that apple, or you drink that Kool-Aid, or the first person that gives you intel or information, if you buy it, you're just going to come back and bite your ass. If you don't keep digging and knowing who to trust, and knowing that not everybody knows everything, it's hard. People all the time with you guys tell me, I'll go by my wife's work, and the reason I don't go by very much is because I can't get left alone. They always asking me questions and such, and I'm not very much on that stuff, right? They all say, oh, you got this easy piece of cake. All you do is watch sports and drink beer. And it's like, you guys are you just don't have a clue. And you don't have a clue how many at this time of year I'm up all night, every other night. And I'm at this point this year has never been worse for me as far as I feel like it's already January. This is the way I typically feel in January, that I'm there. And so I need to change a few things probably. And I need to wake up and change a few things. Not that I can't do it. What I can't do is some of the other things I still do that I shouldn't be doing.
I just want to say one thing.
27 straight games, Iowa has not allowed over 24 points. 27 in modern day college football. That's nuts.
That's right. In this day and age of football. Well, part of that's
not even Georgia or Alabama has done that. Iowa's the only team that's done that. So to think that Penn State's going to blow this team out, I don't know where that reasoning would come from. I just don't know where it would come from. I happen to think Penn State in a grinded out game, much like the Wisconsin game, I think they're going to get there. I'm not going to bet them, but I like them enough to think that they're going to get there. But, this Iowa just gets sold short over and over and over and over and over. Again, that gets tiring to listen to.
Yeah, they're dangerous teams that way. I know
you got to handicap both sides of the game.
You got two really good cornerbacks. Corner on defense. You got Riley Moss, senior, right cornerback, but I think he probably will be covering Dotson wherever he lines up the field. Dotson is now probably a first-round pick at wide receiver.
But so are they by chance, John. Matt Hankins might be. He's got 3 pick sixes already this year. I mean, so the matchup is a stalemate. There's no – you can't go into a game thinking that's an advantage because they're going to pressure Clifford.
But you're right.
It's not an easy matchup. That's as tough a matchup as Jahan Dotson has
had all year. Penn State has an issue. They have an issue, guys. They don't run the ball. They don't run the ball efficiently, okay? They don't even try. And if you don't think, as Rob just described, if you don't think Iowa's going to have a game plan where, guess what? We're going to go up there. We're going to throw schemes at you and formations at you defensively that you better not throw the ball. We're daring you to run the football. Beat us running the football.
So just in this game over the weekend.
The whole point is that in college football, you don't meet up with many teams that can tell both of their corners on each side of the field, listen, we're going to leave you guys on an island this week because we know you can play man-to-man coverage as well as anybody. And Iowa just happens to be a team that has those guys. So Parker Washington and Jahan Dotson are going to be met with guys of equal talent. And who wins that battle probably wins the game. But to think ahead of time that somebody's going to dominate that battle is – I don't know where the reasoning comes into play. Either you don't know enough about all those players or what.
I think I agree with what you said, but I think the biggest advantage for Penn State is their defense. And I know that goes contrary to the public opinion right now, but Jaquan Brisker is going to be he's targeted for a first round selection, maybe second. He's the safety for Penn State. Guy brings a load. Very hard hitting, very physical, very fast. Castro Fields, first name's Tariq. He is the cornerback that covers the best wide receiver on Iowa. And that segues right into what receivers does Iowa have to threaten that secondary? That's where I'm coming from with this whole thing.
But they're young. They've got the speed, but they're young.
Yeah. And they don't have to have speed. They don't have to. This Iowa team was happy to take 5 yards. If they have to throw the ball, they're happy.
Penn State defensive front.
Well, Tony, you have to have some speed, Tony, because if you don't have speed, then they creep 9 guys into the box because you're no threat. So you have to have some speed, whether it's legitimate. And these kids are inexperienced. To John's point, that matchup totally favors Penn State. Experienced, top-notch defensive backs against young wide receivers who have done some damage the last 2 weeks against Colorado State and Maryland. But this isn't Colorado State or
Yeah,
Maryland.
exactly.
Nobody's
Let me ask you
arguing
this.
Penn State's defense. Nobody's
No,
arguing that.
I'm saying that he's saying that that's where they have the advantage. I see no advantage. Penn State, I see no advantage. You're saying Penn State's defense is better than Iowa's defense?
No, it's a standoff. But
So
the
where are
advantage-
you saying?
But the
where's
matchup,
advantage?
there's a
Like
positional
Dotson-
matchup where the Penn State receivers are more apt to make one play because they're Dotson and Washington, even though they're
Yep.
playing first-round corners. They're more apt to make one play than Iowa's wide
Yep.
receivers are against the Penn State secondary. One play. And that's
You
why
know,
this game is
that's
lined
exactly
at
what
1.5.
I'm saying.
Okay, let me ask you this then. I'm not saying you're wrong about that. Let me ask you this. The first game of the season for this Penn State team, who did they play?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin. And did you watch that game?
Yeah, they gained
I did-
about
well,
168 yards.
Yeah.
And guess what? Wisconsin, who is horrible, they can only run the football, had 29 first downs against Penn State, who had 11. Where is that?
Okay, so
Where is
Penn,
that in your statement?
Penn State is not that team. Penn State is vastly
Well,
better
stop.
than that
They
team.
are that team. They are that team.
No.
That was 6 weeks ago.
Look what they did
Why
to
aren't they that
Indiana. Indiana was supposed to be so hot.
Well, hold on. Who said that? No
Look what
one's
they
ever.
did to Auburn.
Who?
Penn
The
State.
better
No,
argument, John, the better argument is to say, do you think Wisconsin's 29 first downs were a mirage? Because they
Yeah.
haven't come close. Their offense has just been god awful against everybody.
Yes,
they played.
exactly. Well, that's you're making my point. See, by saying that, I agree with you.
Who leads the
yeah.
Big Ten in touchdowns allowed?
But again, they played
Just
Wisconsin.
saying. Just saying.
I'm just saying. If you face
And two of those touchdowns allowed were
those
at the end of the
things mean
Villanova
nothing.
game.
We're going
Touchdowns
back and
mean
forth
Nothing.
on this game. We're arguing back and forth, and I think it all comes back to the point where originally it was stated that this game isn't going to be close. And
Oh,
to
I think
think
it
that
is.
it's not
I
going to be
did
close going
state
in
that.
is
I did state that.
outrageous thinking when you break this game down. It's just outrageous. Now, it could be, hey, listen, Penn State could win the turnover battle 4-0 on Saturday. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a football game, and they could win the game 27-10. But to go in thinking that I'm betting this game because it ain't going to be close because Penn State has all these advantages.
Well,
they have no advantages in that. They don't have more advantages than Iowa has. The one advantage they have is I think those wide receivers can make one more play, and the running ability of Sean Clifford doesn't exist in Spencer Petras. Spencer Petras can't run the football. He's a statue. Sean Clifford, in a play that breaks down, might be able to make a play with his legs.
Let me go back to that game with Wisconsin. Okay, and I know. Okay, 29 first downs to 11 for Penn State. Here's my deal. Were they a mirage? Are those a mirage?
No, but I would tell you this. I would tell you that was the very first game of Penn State in this offensive system. The very first game, and it happened to be against an elite defense.
But I'm not talking about the offense. Now, please don't. I'm talking about what John's referencing, and that's their defense. So let me ask you this: what was time of possession in that game?
That game wasn't
Lopsided.
close statistically.
How
It
about
was all
40?
Wisconsin.
How about 43-17?
Yeah.
Where is the defense?
I mean, I feel like
Against
that game was
Wisconsin.
0-0 at halftime. Somebody go.
It was 0-0.
It was 0-0 at halftime. But
And then-
43-17. Listen, you're not an elite defense. That doesn't happen to you against a Wisconsin team that had 3 turnovers, 3 to none, and 42-7. Here's the deal. I don't think I'm not going to jump out there and proclaim that Penn State is all that. I'm just not going to. These kind of things are not anomalies. Anomalies are this: you lose a game because you had 6 turnovers and the other team didn't. Your time of possession maybe 33-27. 43-17 is ridiculous.
And Tone, to even take your point a step further, the other good team they played was Auburn. And Auburn ran for 182 yards on that team, 4.6 a carry. Yep. So, to your point, could Penn State's overall numbers be a little bit skewed by beating up on Ball State, Villanova, Indiana with a banged-up quarterback? Maybe. Yeah. We're going to find out, right? But I just think that whichever side you land on, if you land on Iowa or if you land on Penn State, if you think it's going to be easy either way,
No, I don't.
it
No,
ain't easy.
you see, I'm not really high on. You see, I still think there's a bunch of dinosaurs in the Big Ten, and one of those is Christ. I mean, how was he ever?
Oh, yeah.
How was he ever? You know, this guy.
Right.
He won't go out there and hire. He still play. It's just absurd how he ever got hired from Pitt. Because what he did at Pitt for those 3 years, when he was at Pitt, was the OC for Pitt, and then he got the head coaching job at Wisconsin. He's in. There's some inbreeding there. He was a Wisconsin player. He was a quarter, that kind of thing. So it's a good old boy network, obviously. But yeah, there's still guys. Harbaugh still he's pretty conservative play caller.
Yeah, and Chris makes him look like a wide open.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Yeah.
I mean, they haven't evolved since they had Ron Dane in 1998 or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this, and we'll do our final best bets. I guess somewhat quickly. I'm getting a little hungry.
Fired.
I'm getting a little hungry.
Since I'm the host, I'm going to end this debate, and we can carry it tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
But I'm going to end it with this simple fact that 5-0 teams going head to head.
Mm-hmm.
The dog. Let me make sure I have this right here. All right, so when you have the 5-0 favorite is 5-15 against the spread when facing a 5-0 foe.
Can I ask how many of those were 1.5 point favorites?
Yeah, and what are they? How many were FBS and how many were Division 3?
It's a cute number, but I mean,
it does include
basically a pick 'em.
It does include pick to favored, so the 5-0 favorite includes pick 'em.
Right, and maybe
that
one of those
so that
a pick 'em.
So that would include this in the 5-15 record. But 5-0 teams in general, and you have a bunch of them this week. Even Coastal Carolina tonight, which I think will throttle. I forget Arkansas State.
Arkansas State.
Then you have Georgia, and that's an interesting matchup against Auburn. Then you have Iowa, Kentucky, which I think will carry the day against LSU, which is a team incomplete. They don't know what their identity is, and then Michigan. So one of those, it's very likely that list is going to see somebody go down. And obviously it's not Coastal Carolina. It's probably not Georgia. But the rest of those games are tightly lined. Iowa, Kentucky, Michigan.
I'll tell you how. Let me give you an example of why you should, or why I believe you should also have a little more faith in that Michigan number. I always think Michigan's lines are inflated. So if they're inflated and you think that line's not high enough,
exactly. That was my whole point.
Do you know how many times Harbaugh's won as an underdog on the in Big Ten action on the road? How many times he's won?
3.
No, 1 last week. First time ever.
Yep.
So that alone, with some of the teams and injuries and things he's dealt with in his 7 years, whatever it's been, they're typically inflated, because they're Michigan. So yeah, listen, Nebraska is just. I agree with everything you guys said. Almost everything. Here's the deal: I don't think anyone in the Big Ten's elite. Anyone. I don't even think at this point in time. Ohio State,
Georgia and Alabama are.
Yes, Ohio State's starting to show some things that would give me, if I was an Ohio State fan and if I had a future on them, would give me some hope. They're doing some things a little differently. They're kind of growing into Stroud's kind of growing into his role a little bit more. And when he got called, listen, there's a number last week that I swore up and down, and on one show I said, listen, as soon as they announce that Stroud's going to play, that number is going to move, right? It never budged one bit. It held serve, Rob. I was surprised at it. Guess what? And I felt like it was a missed opportunity for me because when it didn't move, I should have said, I think it should have moved and should have jumped, and I didn't. So,
yeah, I think, John, I forget if we did that game here on the Manny's Pub show, but I think we did. And the love affair with Rutgers was such last
Yeah.
week that
Yeah,
when you
Oh, I
really
know.
stopped and think about it, I thought to myself, you could just see Ohio State. I think it was on this show we discussed it. That you could see
I
Ohio
wasn't
State
there.
hitting
Scoring
them
50
over
on
the
their
top.
own merit. They did.
And they ran that team off the field. So there's a definite class difference. Shiano gets them to play tough. The Michigan State result might be different this week because Michigan State's more in line with Rutgers than Ohio State is.
Yeah.
But Ohio State's like Oklahoma. They have defensive issues, and they got to fix those.
The thing is, what's funny also is you missed that. I think it's Michigan State, Michigan State, Iowa, somebody else don't play Ohio State or Michigan, or their schedules
Iowa could be
their schedules
undefeated.
are perfect. Yeah,
Iowa could be undefeated until the Big Ten.
listen, Iowa's capable of having a hiccup. That's the thing about Big Ten is playing on the road in the Big Ten. It's not a Sunday walk. It's just not a Sunday walk. So yeah.
No. They'll be undefeated until they play Nebraska, and then Nebraska will be the team.
Do you remember 2000? You remember 2015?
And I'll say, I told you Nebraska was good.
Mm-hmm. And they are good. They are good. You can be good and stupid and mistake prone at the same time, and that's the definition of Nebraska.
Iowa, 2015. Who remembers that they were 11-0? And they went into the championship game, the Big Ten championship game, and they got scored on with 27 seconds left, lost that game, and missed out on being one of the January 4.
That's those championship games. They're helpful and they're harmful at the same time.
They are.
They're both.
Yeah.
For years the Big 12 didn't have one, and the Big 12 was getting left out, and they're like, we got to have one of these because
that's absolutely right.
It's not helping us out not having one.
Yep.
So
let's do a final round of bets here. I think it's been a great show. I love the back and forth today. Mr. Scholl.
I gotta go.
Yes, he's got to go.
I got another show in 5 minutes, but very quickly.
Okay.
Best bet for tonight's NFL Thursday nighter. Chris Carson apparently is 50-50 game time decision. So therefore, I'm going to take Russell Wilson over 1.5 passing touchdowns, minus 160 at Bet365, for the reason that the total is hovering around 54, 55 in the mid-50s, projecting a lot of scoring. Wilson's a stud. He should be able to get 2 touchdown passes. That's it for me.
Like it.
Well,
like
as long as he's upright. As long as he's upright.
Well, of course he has to be upright to throw a touchdown pass.
No, he doesn't. I saw a guy parallel with the ground last week throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah. I never look at prop play prices, but I'm looking.
I'm out, guys. I gotta go.
All right, Jesse. Thanks a lot, man.
Take care, Jesse. Take care, bud.
Go Dodgers.
Iowa shirt next week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Go Winnipeg Jets or something like that. I don't know. Whoever they are.
Yeah.
Is he a Toronto fan? He's a Toronto fan or something. Okay, guys. What's your free pick? I got to go find out why I didn't get pinged for the show.
Yeah, it's been more than 5 minutes.
They may have tried to ping me, and I didn't answer. No, they would alert me. They have systems they can alert me on my screen too. So they just haven't. There's something wrong. And it's not the first time that would happen. But I gave out a free pick tonight. It was on. I liked the over when it was 70, and now it's 73. Remember, I think Monday.
Yep.
I think I gave it out. I still played it I played it at 70. I came back and played a little more at 71. And then what I did was I have there's 2 games I really, really liked. One's tomorrow night and one is Saturday. And so I like playing. Basically, I didn't parlay. What I did was I have a fund and I played the over and I played at 72.5. And it's a fun. I don't parlay, but it's a true parlay because I'll take the money. If I win, then I basically roll it over tomorrow's game, and then if I win, then I roll it over to Saturdays. I don't take that. It's just if you can do those things, it's not always possible. So, but when it is, I do it. All I have to do is make sure I'm awake and alert, and I don't miss the game. It requires sobriety.
Well, I mean, that's a tough. It's tough to be awake and alert simultaneously for anybody.
sober.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is.
Oh dear Lord!
The trick is to be balanced. Everything in moderation.
Oh,
Like half awake, half drunk.
I do everything in moderation, excessively.
That's gonna be your epitaph. I'm gonna make sure when that day comes, that'll be your epitaph. Do everything in moderation.
Everything in moderation,
excessively.
Right.
All right, so I'm looking at the game tonight. Player props. So Jesse was on the touchdowns. I have a big play at Sports Memo on the totals. I'm 8-1 so far this year in NFL totals. I'm running hot, as you guys know. So I don't want to give that away, but I like the Rams tonight, and I think the Rams.
I have concerns. I have concerns
take
about
this
Seattle.
game pretty easily, maybe not by double digits, but I will go Matthew Stafford over 303.5 passing yards for my show pick. I'll do Rams for the show pick for a regular pick, and then pizza money over Stafford 303.5.
You guys done any? Rob, either one of you two done any of your? Is your NFL ready to rock and roll, or have you made decisions yet? Or are you still looking and deciding and contemplating? And
I'm still deciding on the NFL for the Sunday.
I had 2 decisions made yesterday, Tone, and never put them up yet. To your point about how busy we get, I know what I'm playing, and it's a day later, and I still haven't put them up. So I got to get to that.
I knew on Monday. It's Thursday.
It gets.
I don't have them up. Now sometimes I do that. Sometimes I subconsciously do it because I know. Listen, I hate putting stuff on a Monday, knowing I'm gonna see it 1.5 difference on Friday,
Right.
And I hate doing that. A lot of times I do it to clients so they can get the best number. But then there's the other side of the coin, and I catch a lot too. I've had guys actually. I had one guy once. I used to release all my big stuff on Mondays. I would look at the overnight NFL, and I had one guy always say, "Tony, you always put a line out there that's not available." No, when I put it out there, it's available.
Right. Yeah.
It's when you get it. And he was kind of a just one of those guys that could never make happy, and he bought at the last minute. And I tell him time and time again, listen.
Wow.
And I typically, if you see on my promos, I'll say, listen, I strongly suggest that you get this number yesterday because it's going to, as soon as sharp money hits it, it's going to lose value, and they're going to hit it. I may know something. The sharps know lots, but I may get a tell on something that I'm not supposed to share. That's going to come out, and then I might have an hour or 2 hours or maybe 6 hours ahead of when it's released, and it's hard to get that information out. I'll take advantage of it sometimes, and to that point too. Listen, guys, that information is, if it's right 60% of the time, I'm thrilled. People think that the information is right all the time, right? And I tell them it's not always right. It's just not. So, but like you, yeah.
I'll say this, where our clients are concerned. I had to make that decision when I came to Wager Talk. I just make the decision that your allegiance is to the guys who have paid for long-term packages. So they get to play immediately.
Yep.
So if you give it to them on Monday, they're getting the best of the line. They paid. These stragglers that come in on Saturday morning, I don't know what to tell you anymore. Sometimes I don't.
It's not your fault.
Late.
It's not our fault.
You have to pick an allegiance somewhere, and it's going to be to the guys that have done week, month, yearly, whatever.
It's you become, and I would say that if one of us hasn't yet, then we probably need to seek therapy. You get kind of some thick skin after a few years. My skin's pretty thick. I don't like. There's certain things that really bother me, but it's never by a client. It's usually by somebody that knows it bothers me, and then they do it because they want to bother me. All right, and I don't react very well sometimes to those things. So
I can imagine.
I used to be pretty mean. I used to be, I'm still stupid, but I used to be stupid mean. So I think I'm a pussycat now. I'm a baby.
So we need Rob Vino's free pick, and then we're done.
Robbie, you want my free pick too, don't you?
I just
You
looked
did
up and saw
over
that.
Coastal Carolina.
I
Right?
was just looking up and see that the Astros have 6 on the board now. So Jesse won that first 5 over.
No, you don't.
6
I would have played the under 4 in that. I would have. I didn't, but I would have.
Yeah, they got to Lance Lynn pretty good. Last time I looked, it was 3. Now it's 6.
Here's the deal. Lance Lynn's 98% of 97, 96 on that fastballs. Who's the best fastball hitting team in baseball? The Astros.
And they don't strike out.
That's right. That's right.
They don't strike out.
That's right.
And tomorrow they'll have Framber Valdez.
Oh, and they got to go. Listen, today was a mission critical for Houston. I didn't release them because I got so busy, but I liked them simply because Sale goes tomorrow. And in a 5-game series, if White Sox were to win today, I'm sorry, it was Boston game I'm talking about, but I think it's a big game for Tampa Bay as well tonight because if you don't win this in a 5-game series, and you got Sale tomorrow. And don't be fooled. Tampa Bay isn't they've become and you remember when they were hitting 120 against left-handers, they couldn't hit a left-hander if you blindfolded the pitcher. Okay, those are proved, but they still have some holes there in that lineup with left-handers. If they lose tonight and Sale goes tomorrow and Sale wins, I hate to say that I think Tampa Bay's the best all-around, best balanced team. Them in Houston, and I selected Tampa Bay because I like their bullpen better than like Houston. Houston did some work on it. I love Chicago's bullpen. Actually, give me the White Sox bullpen. But no Rodon. They have some issues too. So they got Tony Russa.
That's the biggest issue.
That's
Imagine real quick though.
that means there's hope for Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
The 3-man, the top 3 that Tampa Bay brought in their rotation to the playoffs last year.
Yes.
Right. And none of those guys are there now. It's McClanahan, Shane Baz, and I'm even missing who the third guy is in that. But it's nothing like what it was last year, and they're still just as good.
The guys pitching tonight, McClanahan, like you said, McClanahan, Baz goes tomorrow.
Baz goes tomorrow, and I'm missing who goes in Game 3. I can't think of it.
I think they resigned. Morton.
Chris Archer.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow. The best trade. Listen, that's Tampa Bay. This is one of those organizations that 10, 20 years from now, they continue to do what they're doing because at the beginning of this season, they were retooling. They were essentially selling pieces off to retool. And look where they are. They had the best record.
It's Rasmussen.
When he's not, listen, he's typically he's a long reliever. He's topping it out about 90 miles an hour. Yep. He's basically he's contrary to what Tampa looks for in a pitcher. They want a guy that's throwing 100 that they can get 2 innings out of.
Tampa Bay has to win tonight.
They do. They have to win tonight. In my opinion, that's what I mean. Now, can Sale, can he bomb? Sure. Can Scherzer bomb? Of course they can. But I'm sure not. Guess what? I'm not standing in front of the Scherzer train.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, and the 3 that they marched out there last year.
It's not. And guess what? They're better. They're more experienced now. When they picked up Nelly, I can't tell you. Oh, I can't tell you how big that was for them. And I think you all talked about that, Rob. Yeah.
Just his presence, because you were saying how they were bad against lefties, and just having him in the lineup.
Yeah.
And a Rosarina picking it up the second half helped too. To have a good right-handed bat.
He had that. Yeah, I agree. What's the kid? They got a few kids. They have a few players that most people, if you ask them on the street, so stop someone and say, you're a baseball fan, love baseball, who's your favorite team? Yankees. Then you should surely be able to name me 3 Tampa Bay players, right? Nope. Hold on. You play them 17 times a year. You play them 18 times a year. You can't name
the New England Patriots of baseball.
Yeah, the Brandon Lau kid. Brandon Lau kid hit 36 home runs.
Right.
Yeah. It's amazing. It really is amazing. For those who complain about shoestring budgets and we can't get it done, and Major League Baseball is so unfair. I mean, they are.
San
And Tone,
Diego.
that trade for Chris Archer probably will go down as the biggest robbery of all.
Yes. Oh, I agree 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think Shane Baz came from that trade.
And here's the deal. I think Chris Archer's back, too.
Yeah, he's on the IL, but he's back.
Yeah, right. Houston, Tampa Bay. Listen, that organization in Houston, let's throw the sign stealing out the window to the curb. This organization is first class. I have a hard time believing that front office and those in power that make big decisions for that organization knew that crap was going on. I don't think they did. I don't think that would have been. I think what happened needed to happen. But long story short is the problems they're having right now with minor leaguers. They gave them their salary raise. They're making $275 a week. They now raised it to $500 minimum. Even $500 a week is poverty level. What Houston did, I don't know if you guys know this, but they built housing, and they built housing for all their minor league players, all of them, from A all the way. They're paying for it. They've got new houses or dorms, whatever it is, paid for them, and they still get their weekly. So that and that's what Houston did. And so I tried to do the math on it a little bit, but you're talking about probably their system, all those probably about $60 million. That's not including what it costs to build the housing. So that's a pretty good chunk of money that typically I give the baseball owners a lot of grief. You know how I give them? I think they're the biggest divas in the world. They basically, which is contrary to what I just said about the Houston organization. That's they turn a blind eye until their brand gets scarred. Then all of a sudden they point the finger at someone else, blame someone else, and try to fix it. Right? Yeah. Okay,
so Mr. Vino, who's your Mr. Vino's free pick?
Yeah, listen, I'll go to Saturday,
dinner.
guys. I'll jump a couple days ahead of us and go to Saturday. LSU, Kentucky. John, you talked about it for just a
wow. You are going to make it. You're going to take a position in that game. I've got to hear this because I want nothing to do with that damn game.
Yeah, and for those, I'm going to spit this out quick, but the full write-up is on my free plays on my homepage at wagertalk.com. So if you want to go get the in-depth on it. But I played over 50.5 for multiple reasons here. First of all, 50.5 is a great number to get because 51 is so key. You always want to stay under 51 if you're going to play a total in that range. LSU is a pass-happy team. They know who they are. They can only throw the football, period. Max Johnson, Keyshawn Butte. It's an explosive bunch when they get enough protection. Kentucky hasn't been great against the pass, guys. The numbers are all in the write-up, but they haven't been great against the pass. I think LSU will make some headway there. Today, LSU had a second starting defensive back lost for the season. They're going to be without, not only are they without Stingley, but now they're without their best safety, led the team in tackles as far as defensive backs are concerned, which Kentucky's a team that can't really throw it with Will Levis, the Penn State transfer. He's not a great thrower of the football, but there's going to be openings now against that team when they have to, and they can balance it out a little bit. LSU has been pushed around at the line of scrimmage. We could go back to UCLA and then work our way through. And Kentucky's a rough offensive line, physical team. So they'll run the football. Levis runs the football with them. You have to defend the quarterback run as well, which they didn't do good against DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA. Long story short, I think the strengths on the offensive sides hit the weaknesses on the defensive sides. 50.5. I know it's Kentucky, and that's why the number is where it is. So I think we're getting a little bit of value because it's just thrown up there because, Kentucky grinds clock and they don't score. But in this instance, I think they will score. LSU defensively is a mess right now. So give me LSU, Kentucky. If I get a 34-17 game, I win. A 31-20 game, I win. I'll take those chances over 50.5 LSU, Kentucky on Saturday.
Awesome. And I have them all listed in the chat.
I
have over Coastal Carolina 70 points from Tuesday's show, currently 73. Russell Wilson over 1.5 TDs, minus 115. Rams minus 2.5. Over Stafford 303.5 passing yards. Over 50.5 LSU, Kentucky.
Tony Finn, I'll ask a favor of you when you're over 70 points in the Coastal Carolina game. Let a bunch of them be scored in the first half because I have over 37 first half.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'll make that call for you, Rob.
That up, boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll make that call. We'll get that taken care of.
I see 42.
It'll
Well,
be good.
Well, 37 is a pretty good number, I would say.
Yeah, and well, it was 35 and a half originally. I could have got in earlier, but I was too, slow on the trigger.
Well, your excuse for being slow. I mean, I'm slow about everything. Everything I'm slow about. So that said, here is I have one of the questions I had for you guys was is I've been trying to I was trying to and I couldn't get them, and I just checked again. So I'm not going to get. I want. I don't have player. I wanted some player props on this Stanford Arizona State game. Did you guys find?
Let's do that tomorrow.
Okay. Well, did you find?
Because I got to go eat.
Okay. Did you find this line strange? Did you find this line?
Well, when they said that McKee was going to start at quarterback for Stanford, that the injury wasn't that bad, I'm like, why does he keep climbing all the way to 13? What's the deal behind it?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, first off, it's the McKee's not the Arizona State. Well, Arizona State had some issues with the dual threat quarterbacks that they'd faced, and they seem to be, at least that's my intel and what I've seen and what I read and what I've looked at and viewed, is that they're a better bet, obviously, against pocket passer, and that's been
and that's what McKee is, right? He's a 6'6" statue. So
correct, right?
We'll
that's
John, you're getting hungry, pal. I can tell.
Yeah. Okay, guys.
Something good for
We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for your time, guys. I think it was a great show. I really did. I love the debating, and I'm going to paint IOWA on a shirt. I'm not buying one.
IWOA.
And remember, do everything in moderation, but
excessively.
So,
okay, buddy.
Make sure you eat extra at dinner.
That'll be our new show motto. Thanks for watching, guys, and do everything in moderation excessively.
I promise.
And may all the wins be yours excessively.
I'll take them.